Saturday, July 13th, 2024 at approximately 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time was potentially one of the greatest turning events of the 21st century, was the attempted assassination on former President Trump. I want to talk about how that could have affected all of our lives, how it could have completely disrupted our finances, our economy, our civility and the stability in our given cities and our given parishes and counties and internationally. And I want to talk about the perception of bitterness that so many have towards President Trump that has blinded us to the point where our own demise is forgotten about or washed out or blocked out at the prospect of this man taking a bullet to the head in front of all of us on international TV. For those of you who are new, I like to give context on who I am. I want to first give context on the fact that this is a weekly addition to my channel, what I call a Pioneer Spotlight. Every single one of my subscribers and dedicated viewers are pioneers in my eyes, trailblazing their own way to financial independence, financial freedom, and a better quality of life, building better communities and a better society. Every week I cover comments, I cover questions in the comment section, I cover hot topics that I think are relevant to my audience, or just some of the latest news or the latest economic news, financial news. So in this particular instance, I'm not covering any comments or questions. This is strictly going to be covering what now has been about 2 weeks, the dust settling on one of the greatest turning events in the last 100 years or so, give or take, in our American history. And so, first off, who I am, for those of you who are new, my name is James Phillips, 13-year veteran in the banking and financial services industry, currently working a corporate job in banking as a banker, helping small businesses, consumers, and emerging affluent clients, licensed in FINRA Series 6 investment, mortgage originators licensed actively, life insurance license, and again, certified in small business. So helping small businesses with banking, cash flow management, and lending needs. So somebody who has pretty good expertise given my age in my career, and as well as somebody who's a father, who's, an everyday person in my community as well. If you're curious where I'm from, I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana. That's where I was born and raised. So just to give context on myself, other than that, I want to dive into the topic at hand. The first thing I want to address is the emotional attachment and disdain for President Trump or former President Trump, potentially future President Trump, being so deep for so many of us that many of us, the biggest parody or the biggest joke that came out of July 13th event was, damn, he missed. Or damn, he had one job. And I get it. The type of society we have, social media, I get it. There's going to be jokes around some of the biggest events, no matter what's going on, how serious or significant they are. There's going to be some kind of comedic turn to it. But unfortunately, I think many of us are completely missing the fact that if that bullet had been an inch or so in the other direction, had Trump not moved his head, whatever factors that were at play that led to him surviving this shot and only being grazed versus having his head blown off, but on international television, could have changed our lives forever. And I want to break down on a domestic level here in the United States, an international level. I want to break it down from economics. I want to break it down from our society. And I want to break it down from a geopolitical point of view. So hopefully you have your attention span together and plan on sticking through, because I expect to see some comments. I want you to get your thoughts, your feedback, your kickback, whatever you may have on the topic. Starting with our economics and our personal finances here in the United States. To put context on how things work, many of you I know in my audience are intelligent enough to know, are informed enough to know, but some of you may not have thought about this or may not have necessarily a deep education on how economics and finances works in this country. So I'm going to put a quick context on it and then trace this back to how things could have changed if President Trump was actually killed in that attempt. Our economy is essentially based off of borrowing and spending from a consumer and business point of view, for the most part. There's a lot of mechanisms and components in between those two major, aspects of our economy. But at the end of the day, it is very largely dependent on individuals, small businesses, government, etc., borrowing money and spending money. When you think about how things could have turned out on July 13th if President Trump had been assassinated, when you think about how COVID went down, for a better example, that was a worldwide pandemic that, for the most part, without us having answers at the time and only being aware that there was a major virus spreading that was causing serious health concerns and flat out killing many people, the global economy pretty much grinded to a halt. The stock market plummeted, And our abilities to function in our society changed dramatically overnight. I know that President Trump's attempted assassination had been successful. It would not have possibly been the same impact or blunt impact on the global economy or maybe even the US economy. But I can tell you for a fact it would not have been that far off. We are talking about the United States, which regardless of all of the dirt, the history, the blood currently on our hands, is still what's considered the most powerful and influential country in the world. We are responsible for so much stability around the world, even though we cause a lot of chaos around the world. It does not get a lot of highlight in that we are also responsible for a ton of stability around the world. When you think about domestically speaking, we are so torn in this country that had former President Trump actually been killed in that assassination attempt, the natural reaction from many of us on one side of the aisle would have been celebrations in the street. The natural reaction for those who are typically supporters of Trump and those who felt deeply represented by Trump would have been absolute vengeance in the street. If you stop and think about the broad range of people who support President Trump and how passionately they support him, there would have been potentially tens of thousands, maybe potentially even hundreds of thousands of very angry, in a lot of cases heavily armed, and in some cases heavily trained individuals that would have been very emotional and that would have been looking for answers and potentially looking to take some form of vengeance at any given point in time in that given moment. What we could have had was a complete collapse of our given society in many metropolitan areas and rural communities. When you think about the financial aspect of that, how that could completely stall business in so many different aspects of our country, you have to think so much of our country is ran by individuals going to work or, running small businesses, small business owners, those of us that are operating the mechanisms that make larger businesses and corporations flow. Once again, had he been killed in that attempt, the stock market probably would have automatically nosedived. On top of that, you would have had a civil situation around much of the country and many pockets of the country where you would have had those in the streets celebrating and you would have had those in the street coming to meet that celebration with force. And I know that may sound a bit dramatic, but I'm just being honest. If you stop and think about it, I'm not trying to paint the picture of exactly who those who oppose Trump are and what they look like in their tendencies, or those who support him and feel represented by him, because it's a broad range on both ends. Everybody from poor working class to the upper echelon are on both sides. But at the end of the day, there would have been an enormous response from both sides had this man been killed. This would have led to a civil breakdown in our society. And when you think about how many of us are situated in our lives, how that would have affected our jobs, our small businesses, if you own a business, how that could have affected the functionality of our everyday routines, how that could have affected the lives of our children or grandchildren if you're at that stage in life. If you're a younger person and you're in college, whatever the case may be, this could have literally put your life at a grinding halt and also put your life and your finances at serious risk, because your ability to go to work, your job itself potentially shutting down because, based on if it's a smaller business or even if it's a larger corporation, it could have been to the point where it wasn't safe to go to work in some places. This would have led to a complete, at least temporarily, civil breakdown. Stock market crash, local levels of, private and government public markets would have been at a grinding halt or screeching halt to the point where it would have been really hard to function. And on top of that, you would have had potential acts of violence breaking out all over the country that would have been extremely hard to tame. The federal government would have been a mess, most likely. And all of this is happening domestically at home, putting everything that we know and everything that is a normal staple in the stability of our lives and our households, communities, etc., in peril. You take that situation and put it on a global stage. As I stated a few minutes ago, we are literally the global leader in a lot of arenas of influence around the world. There's tons of blood on our hands. You don't have to agree with our foreign policy, etc. I don't care. At the end of the day, the facts are the facts. When it comes to geopolitics, when it comes to military situations, when it comes to the global economy, we are the leader. We are the greatest economy, the biggest economy in the world, and we're also going to be the biggest and most impactful military in the world. Our politics, our influence is the biggest in the world and the broadest and the most in-depth in the world. If we immerse into chaos because we've broken down to basically a banana republic, uncivilized third world society where we're literally taking out major political leaders on international stages, literally out of disdain in many cases. It's not like, you know, this comparison to Hitler. And I'm not an anti or pro-Trump. I'm an anti or pro-policy person. So I don't really get overly attached to any political figure. I'm looking to find out what that person is about and what they're trying to accomplish when they get in office. So I'm not pro or anti-Trump when I make these statements. I'm just giving you as much bare bones facts as I possibly can to put perspective for many of you who may be like me and have a rational mind and would not have been excited to see this go down. Or those of you who are so emotionally attached on either side of this that you could have acted impulsively had this news broke out a little differently. That having been said, on a global stage, we would have looked like a circus and we would have looked extremely vulnerable. There's a lot of argument that a lot of the global conflicts that have sprung up since 2021, when you think about Russia, Ukraine, recently Israel, Gaza, we have wars breaking out in all over the globe in small and larger pockets just since Joe Biden's been in office. And many argue the, lack of strength and, continuity and cognition, etc., has led to other countries and other powerful, actors and, military groups, etc., feel emboldened to do the most dastardly of things, like starting wars with other countries and enemies that they've been waiting to strike just because they feel like the U.S. has a weak leader at the time, a fully functioning for the most part, but weak leader. I'm not saying that that's 100% the case, but there's some strong arguments that that's the case. Can you imagine in a massive controversial election cycle for the international community that's already boiling over slowly, to watch us get to the point where the person who is the most likely at the moment, at the time of the shooting, to win the election gets killed at a rally in the States? How that could have affected the geopolitical stage in a matter of days, weeks, or months. There are boiling conflicts that the United States presence is the only thing keeping them from boiling over. China, Taiwan is a good example. Iran in the open conflict, the Hezbollah involvement in Israel, etc. There are conflicts all over the place that just because we exist and we are who we are and our stance is what it is, or we're in between two different parties, or they don't want to particularly start a direct conflict with us, these other massive calamities of geopolitical calamities have not taken place yet. Had this man been assassinated, I can't tell you what that would have looked like. The international stage could potentially be a mess. We think things are pretty bad now with the first war in Europe in decades. We see the Middle East in a hot conflict that we haven't seen at this scale in decades and expanding. This could have gotten out of control because, again, we would have looked terribly vulnerable. It should not get to the point where the level of violence that was attempted on President Trump is the standard function of trying to get rid of one political party or one political leader or another. If we can't do it as civilized, diplomatic individuals, nations, parties, etc., then we have a problem. Because we go around the rest of the world telling the rest of the world that they need to function on democracy and need to be civilized, and we go around throwing out leaders because, of the more violent tactics they may be using, etc. If the same behaviors we chastise around the world, an attempt on President Trump's life in that capacity was the same behavior. And so if the leader of the free world and the leader of the world as a whole cannot be trusted to function in a diplomatic way, then we have no power to project on the rest of the world to function in that same diplomacy. This could have went terribly bad for many of us. Many of us could have been in a very bad position. Would there have been some winners potentially? Sure. There's companies that would have benefited from the conflict. There's entities, etc. But for the larger bulk, 80 to 90% of us as everyday civilians in this country, regardless of ethnic class, religion, race, financial, economically, social positions, whatever the case may be, many of us would have been in a potentially very bad position overnight and potentially for an extended period of time. Do I think the world would have collapsed? No. But do I think things would have gotten drastically unstable really fast? Absolutely. Because there would have been a lot of people pissed off. And that would have led to a cascading event of a lot of violence in the street. There would have been even worse political discourse. And then you have to think about, again, the economic situation, the financial situation. How many CEOs have openly come out backing Trump? Whether you like it or not, some of the most influential, highest ranking CEOs in the country have publicly come out since this assassination attempt and backed and started to pour funding into President Trump's campaign. Can you imagine these people seeing the person that they felt like that was going to be best for their company, for policy, for business in America, etc., being murdered in cold blood at a rally months before the election is about to take place? Again, the stock market would have plummeted and there would have been chaos economically, media, politically, and downright chaos in the street. I say all of this to say, for all of my pioneers and any of the newcomers watching this video that have stuck it out to this point in time so far, if you are anywhere near a situation where you have a disdain for this man, or honestly an allegiance to this man to the point where either side is willing to crash out and put yourself, your family, your career, your society, the greater community around you, and contribute to the instability of this entire country and thus the entire planet, you need to stop and revise your position in this situation. You need to stop and revise. I don't give a damn what your background and what your social circumstances are. There's no reason for us to be so brainwashed and negatively influenced to the point where we literally were cheering for the fact for this man to get his head blown off ahead of this election. That is completely unacceptable. And I don't care what your stance may be. I don't care how justified you feel and how much of a scumbag you feel like Trump might be. It's not worth what could have took place domestically and what would have the domino effect that could have took place internationally. It just wasn't worth it. If you think about the way the media has placated this situation and politicians as well, anybody that is willing to be an instigator in your life, when you think about us as one-to-one individuals in our subcultures, at our workplaces, and our families, when the concept of an instigator makes us sick. Somebody who sits in between two parties and agitates them into a conflict with each other, for a paraphrasing definition. That is what the media, a lot of the politicians have turned into in our country for a long time. We have a lot of underlying issues in this country from how it was founded, how it functioned for a long time, and how it's graduated to this day. And as many things have progressed, as much has advanced, there's still a lot of unresolved issues, trauma, pain, and tension in this country. And when you stimulate that by the fact that the media, politicians, and all these other figureheads and celebrities and entertainers are agitating all of these soft spots in order to project power, to get political power, to get financial gain, us as the American public, I don't care, again, your background, have to stop and analyze how we've been instigated to the point where what happened a couple Saturdays ago that could have completely changed the stability in our lives, our communities, the entire country and beyond. And we were cheering, some of us were cheering for this. The concept of the, illegitimacy of this assassination attempt and the conspiracy theories. Listen, I'm not somebody who is invested in this in a way where it's like it's impossible. Our government has lied to us and come up with all kind of stuff. There's all kind of declassified documents on major events that were lies at the time and false flag and fake events at the time that have come to be true. But until more evidence comes out, it's completely irrational to say at this point in time that this was completely faked and false. For one, Trump was pretty sturdy in the lead prior to this assassination attempt. The man was already on track to win. And as we've seen just a week after him, the failed assassination attempt, Joe Biden drops out. So what does that tell you? Tried to throw prison at him. They tried to remove him from the ballot box. There's been all kind of things thrown at Trump in the last, really since he's been in politics, but especially in the last year or so. None of that was considered a conspiracy. Nobody questioned whether or not the fact that he was thrown in the criminal court and all these other things trying to put a felony. And I'm not trying to say whether he was or wasn't, but I'm just trying to tell you that we've had a lot of illegitimate presidents that could have gotten felonies. This has never been a thing, ever. We've never seen politics. We've never seen a judicial system used against a president like this in the history of this country. So why against President Trump all of a sudden? I have no clue. If you want to tell me about conspiracies. So the fact of this man faking or staging a conspiracy to have his head blown off and only missing it by potentially an inch or so to look strong in front of the country, or to whatever people are saying that he, the motivation behind his fake attempt would have been, in my opinion, until more evidence comes out, is preposterous. It's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, everybody's entitled to their own perception and their opinion. All I'm going to tell you is that artificial simulated assassination would have went wrong, and he would have gotten his head blown off. And he would have been one of the 2 or 3 other people that were killed in that situation. This entire landscape of our lives and our finances, the banking system, for those of you who are functioning in your finances, who follow my channel, know that I put out a ton of concept around lending and banking and financial health in those arenas. That would have all been in a very bad place. Banks would have been clammed up. You think they're tight now with their lending? They would have clammed up. There would have been an emergency scenario from the stock market. The Federal Reserve would have had to jump into action. The entire financial system would have went through a massive shock. And it would have been a problem because many of us that are not exceptionally wealthy and exceptionally well connected would have been the ones suffering. And it's sad because we're the ones that would have been in the street jumping around in excitement, or jumping around in anger and vengeance and looking for a target. So I say this to all of my rational viewers out there, and those of you who have been a bit irrational up until this point in time, I want you to take a deep breath and think about whatever side of the aisle you're on, how this could have went down for us. And I need us to come to a rational place. However deep this video can reach, I need us to come to a rational place. If you want this man out of office, or you don't want him in office in the first place, do it politically, do it diplomatically, support campaigns, do your part to do your best to make sure he doesn't get in office legitimately by the principles and virtues that this country is intended to function on. We don't need people getting their heads blown off in order to eliminate them from getting into office. It's just ridiculous. And it has very little benefit for the vast majority of us. It would have been an utter disaster. I'm going to pause there. I want you to drop your comments, your thoughts, your perspectives, your insights, your questions, your kickbacks down below in the comment section. I know there's a lot to talk about here, so I want to hear from as many of you as you be honest about how you feel, whatever side of the aisle you want to speak on. If you agree with me, if you feel like, you do believe it was a conspiracy, whatever the case may be, feel comfortable to drop it in the comment section below. I respond to pretty much all my content, my comments. So comment down below and we'll keep this conversation going. Other than that, I want you to support the channel. Like, comment, share, and subscribe so this channel can continue to support you, bringing you the best cutting edge financial information, concepts, and strategies to better your banking relationships, to add to your net worth, increase your wealth, and to help you get the latest news and insight on how to navigate things as they play out in our world around us. So comment down below, like the video, share it, subscribe. I'm going to continue to bring y'all quality content and stay dedicated. So I want y'all to continue to show y'all support so I can continue to do so. Other than that, to all my pioneers, welcome back. To my new viewers, welcome in. I want each of you to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.